Have you noticed that there are more and more stories that invoke and involve the notion and the concept of the Antichrist? More than ever. In 1 week, 2 weeks, and usually involving Peter Thiel, but for the first time in a long time, it has become a news story, not some fringe, crazy, out there, kind of a weird, paranormal view, but something that's actual, tenable, palpable. And here, see, something's changing. Quietly, systematically, maybe not in the headlines alone, but beneath them, subterranean, sub rasa. And voices like Peter Thiel are beginning to frame it in terms that should give pause, even, dare I say, invoking the ancient warning of the Antichrist. Just say that, the Antichrist. It's this idea, this concept that we sort of know a little bit about, but is it the devil, Satan, Lucifer? What evil? Far more interesting, the Antichrist. The subject, not as myth, but as a pattern of deception. A deception that arrives not with chaos, but with order and unity and a seductive, dare I say, convenience, while quietly demanding control. And when a figure like Mr. Thiel, who deals not in fantasy, but in systems systems that are far more palpable, capital and long-range strategy and defense. And when he starts speaking this way, it is not casual. It is diagnostic. It is a signal. It is a warning that something deeper is unfolding. Of all the concepts in the world, why is he saying that? Something that intersects uncomfortably with the moral language coming from institutions like the Vatican now under Pope Leo XIV, where calls for global coordination and shared responsibility and unified, frameworks sound reasonable on the surface, but begin to echo to some ears the very architecture described in ancient texts about the Antichrist, a figure or system not defined by overt evil, but by perfected deception, by offering solutions to fear and stability in what appears to be chaos, calm, peace in uncertainty, while gradually centralizing power and conditioning, in a sense, humanity to accept a world where freedom is basically traded for safety in exchange, and identity is absorbed into a system that sees and tracks and predicts and ultimately shapes behavior and trust and devotion and obeisance. And this is where the tension becomes impossible to ignore, because the Antichrist in traditional Christian understanding is not merely a villain, if you will, but a counterfeit, something that imitates truth so convincingly that it is embraced willingly, a structure that feels like salvation while functioning as control. And when you overlay that framework onto the modern trajectory of artificial intelligence, AGI, digital identity, algorithmic governance, and economic systems that can be monitored and adjusted and tweaked in real time, the parallels become most unsettling. Not again as proof, but as pattern. And this is why, my friend, the conversation matters. Because the greatest threat to humanity may not come from an external enemy, not from disease or some pathogen, or not from war or some enemy elsewhere, but from a slow internal surrender, a willingness to outsource judgment, to accept convenience over autonomy, to let systems make decisions for you, to make decisions in the name of efficiency and accuracy and speed, until the very concept of independent thought begins to erode. That's AI. More importantly, AGI. And when singularity hits, this is the Antichrist. This is what we've been told. This is how it's going to occur. And he's telling you. See, these people, they're ghoulish. They tell you what they're doing. They hide in plain sight. And in that world, the danger is not oppression in the traditional sense, but normalization and habituation and acclimation and becoming used to something and conditioning. And a reality, by the way, where everything functions, everything is optimized, everything feels, for lack of a better word, stable and okay and normal. Yet something essential has been lost. Something that can't be easily defined. Something that's ephemeral. Something that's difficult to nail. We need almost a neologism for it. But it's immediately recognized once it's gone. Remember Joni Mitchell, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And the core of what it means to be human is what we're talking about. And that's why the idea, the concept and the precept and the notion of the Antichrist has endured. Not because of fear, but because it captures a psychological and societal truth about how control evolves. Not through force, but through consent. Not through destruction, but through, in essence, a transformation. And whether you view Peter Thiel's warnings as liberal or metaphorical or whatever, doesn't really matter. They nonetheless intersect with a broader unease that most of us feel, that I do, that's becoming harder and harder to dismiss. A sense that the systems being built that we're talking about right now are not neutral. They're not just these neutral, kind of a plastic results of tech and algorithms, Oh, no. You should get the feeling immediately that they carry with them assumptions about authority and about truth and about the role of the individual and how this all works together. And that once fully integrated, all these things, they may be difficult, if not impossible, to step outside of when it takes over. That's the Antichrist. It's AI. It's AGI. It's singularity. It's everything that just now makes sense. And this is why, by the way, awareness becomes the first line of defense. This is why you've got to pay attention. Because you cannot resist what you do not recognize. Let me say that again. You cannot resist what you do not recognize. You can't question what you've already accepted as normal. And so the call, in essence, is not to panic, not to freak out, but to pay attention, close attention, to question systems that promise total solutions, to remain skeptical, very skeptical, of centralized power, no matter how benevolent it appears or may seem. And to remember something very important. To remember that progress is not inherently good simply because it's advanced or it's fast or it's complicated. And to hold on, by the way, hold on to the fundamental idea that human beings, us, we're not meant to be optimized into some kind of compliance or subservience. But we're here to think, to judge, to use judgment, to choose and to stand apart when necessary. Because if there is even the slightest possibility that these ancient warnings are echoing through modern structures, if there is even the remotest chance that the convergence of technology and power and ideology is somehow creating something that diminishes or crushes or disturbs and destroys rather than elevates the human condition, then the responsibility, your responsibility, mine, ours, falls on everybody to remain awake and vigilant and to resist this quiet drift into dependency and to recognize something, to recognize that the most dangerous transformation by far are the ones that feel the most natural and easy and usual and predicted, calm, the ones that arrive without resistance, the ones that look exactly like what we've been waiting for until the moment that we realize that what we've gained has come at the cost of something that you can't get back. And by then, The system, this world that we live in, is no longer something that we use. It is something that defines us and uses us. We're the product. And the only question left is whether we saw it coming in time or not. Did we do anything about it? Now, I want you to understand something about me because you may not know this, and I'm not somebody who normally falls into this. I don't say things just to be deliberately piquant, to be frightening, to be Christopher Lee-ish, the Antichrist. But for the longest time, religion, theology has told us about evil, manifestations of evil, versions of evil, flavors of evil, iterations of evil. Whether it's Satan or Lucifer, Luciferians, demons, demonic. And we've seen recently all of these from the movie The Exorcist. It's in culture to Eyes Wide Shut. We've seen about this to Baphomet and Baal. How many times do we Moloch? We keep hearing about this. And all of it seemed at one time to be, well, that was kind of over there. You know, that was over there. That was, it's almost quaint. It's like, come on. The devil, the Antichrist. The devil may be difficult for you to grasp. It may be something that you're not familiar with. That's fine. But if ever something made sense, it's the Antichrist. I'm going to give you an analogy. Aside from, as I've said, it's going to be AI and AGI, artificial general intelligence. It's similar to AIDS. What made AIDS so pernicious was it turned off your immune system. People died from opportunistic diseases, Kaposi sarcoma, pneumocystis pneumonia, things that normally weren't lethal, but they were without an immune system. It turned off the radar. It turned off the burglar alarm. It slid in. That's what this does. It fools. It lulls you into complacency. It makes you feel like he's a good guy. The Antichrist wins by deception. And by its very nature, artificial intelligence, through recursive self-improvement, the ability to write its own code and to figure you out, I am telling you, listen to me like you've never listened before. It's here. The Antichrist is here. And you've got a couple of options. One, you can believe me. Or two, you can just reject it. You can just toss it aside. You can just say, that can't be real, can it? Nah. Fear does that. This guy can't be. This guy's crazy. There's no Antichrist. Is there?